Good evening, good morning. Welcome to week 6 of PSHS 6240 here at George Washington University. I just want to start off with a couple of announcements. I think we had a good Adobe Connect session for Group 2. They did a pretty good job. So good job overall. We're going to have our last one a week from Thursday, and that's the Boston Marathon group will go. For those of you who are in that group, please shoot me an email so I know who's in the group and I could send you the updated congressional report on the Boston Marathon attack. And so what I'm looking for that group is just an analysis on where the intelligence failures were for the Boston Marathon incident. And after you see what goes on in week 6, you'll have a more clear answer. What I'm also going to do is do a job talk for that Adobe Connect session. So whoever's briefing will brief for 20, 25 minutes, and then we'll do about 20, 25 minutes related to jobs, careers in the federal government, how to get a job, how to advance careers in the intelligence community. So if you're interested in that stuff, please be at that Adobe Connect session, and I can talk in detail there. So paper 2, you should be completing paper 2 now. So yeah, depending on whether you're watching this, paper is due Sunday, 11:59 p.m. And I didn't get any extensions, so no extensions will be granted. And as a reminder, if you're in group 2, you will not be doing a paper. Current events. So I don't want to get too political here, but what's going on now is the Paris Climate Agreement, or the withdrawal of the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement. What I'll say is this. I believe climate change is real. I believe it's induced, or man definitely has a role in it. I think the science is pretty settled on that. How it relates to this course is it is a very real possibility that we have fought wars over water. That the wars in Syria and Yemen have a lot to do with distribution of water resources, and as water resources will become more scarce due to climate change issues, and it's very likely. Again, the science. I'm going out on a limb here, but it's very likely the war in Syria and the war in Yemen right now might be the world's first wars due to climate change. So just consider that, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, that if there is alterations in the climate, you can believe they're man-made or not, I'll let you decide, but there is going to be more wars over water. There will be more droughts. There will be more population migrations. Those are effects that may happen that can lead to things like ISIS and ungoverned space that we talked about in earlier topics. So just keep that in mind as we go forward, or as the debate around the Paris climate issue comes up. So week 5 review, again, the counter-terrorism strategy, U.S., I think everyone pretty much hit the main comments, what we're good at, what we're bad at, what needs to be improved. EU counterterrorism strategy, that was summed up in the PBS Frontline that I assigned. If you didn't see that documentary, watch it today, because it is a fantastic documentary. It also explains the difference why the ISIS threat in Europe is exponentially worse than it is in the United States. Part of it is the legacies of colonialism in Europe, particularly France, and that's why they have a large Tunisian and Algerian and Libyan population. Part of it is the Nazi experience, particularly when you talk about Germany and their viewpoints on privacy. But the other thing to look at is, and this is going to be a theme in week 6 as well, is people are on the radar. People are known to be terrorists, yet they still conduct these attacks. and they can travel back and forth throughout the EU territories. That will be a theme in week 6, particularly when we're talking about liberal democracies. We know somebody is doing something wrong, but there's not enough to arrest them. So there's that gap in between. How do we solve that problem? And that's come up again, and that'll come up in week 6, but it's come up again with the Orlando shooter, Nidal Hassan, the Fort Hood shooter, the Manchester bomber from 2 weeks ago. These issues will come up and up and up. And a great point for your last paper is how do we solve that gap that we talked about earlier. And then the Israeli comparisons, I think I'm going to lump the Israelis and the Europeans in contrast, the Israelis and the British, and contrast that with the United States. I think the big thing to take away, and I mentioned in the lecture, is resilience. Not to blow these things out of proportion. Manchester was not blown out of proportion. People were told to go about their day-to-day lives. Let's not alter our politics based on terrorism. Calm down. If an American leader said these, and when an American leader says these, he is told he or she is not taking the threat seriously. In fact, there's a lot more. It's better to look hysterical in the face of terrorism than it is to look calm and measured in the United States. Contrast that reaction in Israel, contrast that reaction in Great Britain. And that's my observation. You don't necessarily have to agree with it, but that's kind of what I see as a contrasting point between us and Israel. So week 5, again, one of your final papers will be on counterterrorism strategy going forward, and that's going to be based on what you saw in week 5 with EU, with the Gora lecture, and with the Israeli and U.S. lectures as well. So week 6 preview, documentary week. 3 documentaries. All of them are excellent. I think they're excellent. All of them are family friendly. Maybe I don't know if I want to say family friendly, but there's something you can watch with your significant other. I know I watch them with my wife, and she likes. They were very entertaining and informative to her, and she's not in this business. So feel free to watch them as a family or with your spouse or what have you. So the 9/11, there's a chapter on that's required. There's the National Geographic documentary, Road to 9/11. As opposed to the Road to 9/11 that you got in week 3, this is more the 19 hijackers and what they did prior to engaging in the 9/11 attacks. When you're going through the documentary, just keep in mind, look at it from the counterterrorism perspective, and you'll see the actions of the 19 hijackers, their behaviors, and think, okay, if I'm developing counterterrorism policy, what could I have done to interdict or make sure that what the 19 hijackers did could not have been executed? So think of that in the back of your mind. Nova, Inside the NSA. Excellent documentary. It talks about the 9/11 issue for the first 30 minutes and NSA's role in 9/11, or NSA's ambivalence in 9/11. This was not known. I didn't know about it until I saw the documentary. And then the BBC documentary on the Christmas Day, the underwear bomber. An excellent documentary. For those who don't remember, the 2009 Christmas Day, Abu Talib tried to bring down a large passenger jet, and this documentary explains the intelligence failure related to it, his goals and his priorities there. So again, all great documentaries. If there's bandwidth issues, please let me know. But it should be a good week. And if there's questions, issues, please let me know.